I'm telling you.
I'm Googling and it's like, oh, why is Black Aquaman trending? I was like, oh, we got to explain it to the white people.
I don't know why.
Well, so here, we don't. Media does. Why is Black Aquaman trending on Twitter?
Yeah. First of all, you're not gonna let this escape, but you look like you lost some weight, Brent Hughes.
I've lost a little bit.
All right. I know you've been doing your own little Aquaman thing.
I got some sun too, and that helps.
Yeah.
I show you my summer litmus test. When you red, you can do that.
The Black Futurist.
That's one small step for man.
Okay.
So I got some names for you.
Okay.
It's friends of yours. Shaquille O'Gills.
Shaquille O'Gills. Love it.
Martavius Phelps. C. Murder.
SEA.
SEA.
Yeah. Love that.
Maurice's favorite, Scuba Gooden Jr.
Yeah.
Bruh.
That's ridiculous.
That's the best one by far. And we were trying to just let you how just off the cuff we are. Because we had talked about this earlier. I was trying to remember the name of the movie that Cuba Gooding Jr. plays like the first black diver to ever do whatever. Like
right.
On top of all that, right? What was the name of that movie?
With
Robert De Niro.
Yeah. Of course, he had to have the old dude,
You gotta have the character.
Watching his hand.
Yeah.
You gotta hold your breath longer.
Why'd you just turn to Burgess Meredith just now?
Men of Honor.
Men of Honor.
Because it's the same dude, man. Whether it's Mick or it's Robert De Niro or Gene Hackman yelling at it's always the same dude.
Yeah, you gotta have either the white savior or the white hard ass.
That's it.
Because somebody did.
I
Googled it. Somebody did share that picture and was like, "This is my guy."
That's hilarious. we got to get through the list because we got to get to why we're saying these names. My personal favorite, and many of your favorites as well, Aquaman.
Aquaman.
That's the one. That's the name of the episode. If you ask me, it's Aquaman.
It's hard out here for a fish, man.
Look, let's just say the reason we're talking about this because it is summer 2023, and we just saw the footage of the Montgomery riverboat brawl, as you want to call it. You might be listening to this sometime in the future.
And speaking of names, the Alabama Sweet Tea Party.
That's a good one.
That's it.
I hadn't heard that.
So you haven't seen the picture where they redid the well, it's the whole thing. They redid the Ernie Barnes picture at Good Times.
That's funny.
And you see the people holding the chairs, but then there's a banner in the back that says Alabama Sweet Tea Party.
My favorite picture out of all the pictures, I hope you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to hold it up. This is my favorite of all the ones that I've seen.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeet bomb
Wait. On your left, Cap. Hey, on your left. Now, to the point of why we're even talking about this and why we have these two guys on, we all have our own aquatic stories, right? It's incredible timing because this summer we saw some bad news. We saw that the Obama's young black chef had an accident after paddleboarding, stand-up paddleboarding out of Martha's Vineyard, and he ended up drowning. And it just so happened that I had this interview already in the books with one of our classmates, Dr. Angela Beale Tawfeeq, who has an organization called Diversity in Aquatics. And we're going to get to her in a minute, but first we had to talk about this and why it's so important that not only you know how to swim, but that I know how to swim, because if you need somebody to get your back, you need somebody who might be able to swim 50 meters or 50 yards, do a one muscle up, and then square up.
Yeah, I got you getting across the water, but getting out and fighting, that's where I kind of fall apart. I might be able to carry somebody over there with me that can fight.
On your back. Come on, I'll get you there.
Hey, there it is. Between me and Brent, you got one useful person.
Right. Like
No,
Namar
because once,
throwing people up.
bro, once I found out from watching the video that you can rock bottom a motherfucker, oh man, I'm good. Like I was like, oh, we wrestling. Sign me up. I'm good. And as
The
long
folding
as
chair is too
that's
much.
real, and I know B to part of your point is to talk about, and it's vital, man, especially this episode, to talking about Black folks in swimming. And it's so timely, man. But to your point, if I needed that 50 yards, I could get there in that 50 yards, get the muscle up. Look, I'm going to put my hands on my knees for a minute. Hopefully ain't nobody waiting on that.
I'm going to go off to the side for a quick second.
Hey, y'all, look. Hey, man, if I got to put my hands up, I got to hold on that mug and catch my breath. It's going to look like Lion King in that mug. If Star is at the top, if one of them white people was at the top and they saw me and they just swing everybody black.
No. I ain't even look. Was there a ladder? There was no ladder.
There was no ladder. Not where he was.
No ladder, dog. You doing a full, like B said, you doing a full muscle up. Yeah. Then you get, as long as I can put my hands on my knees for a solid 15 to 20 seconds, I'm going to be vulnerable as hell right there. After that, I'm going to be just like your boy, ready to go. Because he was the same dude that hit man with the book in. He hit him with the rock bottom.
If you can't do the muscle up, at least can you hook your heel on the ledge? Get your heel up.
Roll.
And roll.
Or one of them ankles get close, just grab the ankle and pull him in the water.
Straight, yeah. Gotcha. There's a problem, though.
I'm going to fight you where I'm the strongest.
Earlier this week,
lumberjack match.
Earlier this week, I put out on Instagram, and I know you saw it because you commented, Brent Hughes. It was a silly video of people on a cruise, on like a riverboat cruise or whatever, and it said white people at the cruise, and they were in the water jumping off the boat. And then the camera panned to the right, and it said black people at the cruise, and they were all sitting there like this on the cruise, just looking, smiling. I was like, and there is the problem.
I said, I'm with the white folks.
That's what you did say.
I'm in the water.
What we got to do is figure out how, if our time is limited, your time's limited, Hard Rock's too. You got to change the information, right, in your lifetime so that the next generation addresses the water a little differently than we might have. So let me just start by asking, what is your water story, Brent Hughes? And then Mo, you're next.
So my grandma used to swim for exercise all the time.
Where?
And I was at the YMCA, Lynchburg, Virginia. Well, let's start with Lynchburg, Virginia. So my parents we're from Lynchburg, Virginia. They went to Dunbar High School, which was a segregated high school, all black high school. My grandfather went to Lynchburg Colored High School, which obviously was a colored high school. And when the schools were desegregated, I don't think it was in Lynchburg, but one of the surrounding counties, they closed the school as opposed to letting black people in. And opened private schools. Jerry Falwell opened his academy, Lynchburg Christian Academy, but that was for, and that brings us the story of segregation to what it's really about. It's about class. It's about race, but it's primarily about class because white people weren't going to that school either. Okay. So when they desegregated the pools, there was a public pool in Riverside Park, and my other grandma lived in Rivermont. And we used to go to Riverside Park for camp all summer. I didn't know that the first pool was in Riverside Park until probably 10 years ago. And when the pools were desegregated, I think it was 61. So my dad was 21. They filled the pool with cement and closed it.
Wow.
As opposed to integrating the pool. Right. And they opened private clubs, golf clubs, swim clubs, et cetera, et cetera. And to the point of it being about class, it did happen to segregate black people, but poor whites were included in that because they couldn't afford to go to the club either.
Right.
But the white people could aspire to go to the club. And they took that as, hey, I'm still better than you, even though I'm in the exact same situation. And we've seen that repeated millions of times. So anyway, my grandma used to swim for exercise at the YMCA in Lynchburg, and I would go with her. And I say this, but I'm not sure the exact time, but I've been swimming since I was like 3. Maybe,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I've always been comfortable in the water. I'm not a astrology guy, but I'm a Cancer. So they say, oh, you're a water sign, whatever. But, and then summertime, probably from like 8th grade to 12th grade, I would spend all summer in the pool. And I also realized that's why when football came around, I always had wind because I would be in the pool all day, all summer. So, you know, I'm always comfortable in the water. But when we got to Howard, you know, everybody else had to take swimming.
Yeah.
Engineers did not.
I didn't know that, and I took it anyway because I thought that we all had to take it. I took it twice, actually.
So
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I didn't take it because, I don't have to. And I wish I had taken it because I could swim. Like, if you want to play shark, I can go sit at the bottom of the pool and sit there for forever, whatever. And if you want to race across the pool, I'll probably beat you. But if you want me to breathe and come back, that's not going to happen because I stick my head underwater and I just go, right?
Right.
And so a few years ago, during the pandemic, or right before the pandemic, I hit up Nick, who was the coach at Howard, because I was like, I wanted to, like my grandma, I want to start doing swimming for exercise.
Yeah.
And I started taking classes, and that was Coach Fogan. Coach Fogan was a great coach. And it's funny, again, Howard people, right? So I called him, I was like, hey, I want to set up swim class. He's like, so where your parents from? I'm like, Lynchburg? Like, where their parents from? He's like, oh, Iowa and North Carolina. I said, oh, okay. So your people probably learned how to swim. And so, you know, dissertation on Black people swimming and this, that, and the third. So long story short, what that is, I did learn how to swim, but more what I really learned how to breathe.
Yes.
Right? Because I could swim, but the breathing is an important part of that. And then it was interesting seeing the class because I had taken classes at DPR, and it wasn't, they had to teach at a real basic level so everybody was comfortable. And some people were not comfortable in the water and that sort of thing. And I'm like, I understand that fear, but watching people in his class, the way he did it, the best advice if you're in trouble in the water is the worst advice. I've said this about other things too, but the best thing and worst thing I can tell you is relax. You relax, you will float. People are like, oh, I can't float. And it was funny, again, Coach Fogan, he was like, all the women come in here and can't float. And me, I'm not a small guy, right? And I float. And they're like, why? He can float. Why can't you float? He was like, y'all can't float because y'all scared and your ass tight. What happens when you scared? You tighten your muscles, right?
By contrast, does that mean that your is loose?
Hey, look, I was good. Yo,
Yes,
I was going to say, you said you got to relax. Let me tell you, the last thing that I would ever say to any woman I know in order to get them to relax.
And that's what I'm saying. The best advice I can give you is the worst advice I can give. I mean, if anybody's in the water panicking, they're not going to relax. Your body will not let you relax. And that's what I'm saying. It's like I'm going on beyond that, but our people, like I said this in something else on social media, I'm like, if the water is anybody's, it's ours. Because we came over here on water. We were fishermen. We were swimmers. We were all of these things. And then bigots picked us up and said, oh, y'all niggas will swim away if we let you swim. And then it was, we're not going to let y'all niggas in the pool with us. And so this is the last thing I'm going to say. One thing really sad me and my wife went out to a beach in Maryland one time, and there was a sister and her young son, and he was going towards the water, and she was on her phone or whatever. And she's like, wait a minute, get away from that water. And I'm like, I get it. I understand that. But now that's his first interaction. He's not going to get out of that, right? So,
right.
So that is the long, and I do swim for exercise still. So that's the long and short.
From everything we hear, you are equal to Aqua Mayne as well. You have a very strong open water swimming ability, according to your wife. I have a picture that I want to show, and that's going to lead into Dr. Maurice Dolberry's swimming experience. I want to talk about, what is your water story, Maurice? And you might start by describing what's happening in this picture.
If I could see it, I would.
You can't see that picture?
I mean, I see like life jackets and people are in the water. Is this getting flung off the raft?
Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah, getting flung
two
off
wrestlers. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I can see. So my water story is interesting. So as a kid, I had swimming lessons, and that took away in general my fear of the water. But the Dalberries, as our stock of Negro has been come to be known on this land, We are a short stock. We are a stocky stock.
Short stocky
We are we are definitely mesomorphs. So that's why Dawberries have gone and trended towards stuff like wrestling. Ain't none of us ever been a jockey as far as I know, but self-deprecating point aside, you get it. So my dad would always talk about the fact that between me and him, neither one of us can float. So like dad would always talk about like, look, if there's someone on the bottom of the pool, just let me go. I'll get it. I'll just jump in the pool and just stand up like this and we'll have no problem. I can watch that joint go 3, 4, 5, like and cross my legs and sit slow motion right there on the bottom of the pool. So I naturally sink to Brent's point again. The number one thing that you can do is to relax. I'm able to relax and I can bear, like when I try to float, you could just see my nose and mouth. That's really, really difficult to do. If there are waves, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I start with the point of saying I had swimming lessons, not to say I got so much muscle I can't swim. I need better lessons so that I personally can swim. However, to the point I made earlier, I am comfortable being able to save myself in water. I've had enough water safety to know and have literally swam in that current, the parallel current, you know, as you go, the riptide, you know, as you go to the coast. I've had to swim out of one in North Carolina. So I literally have saved myself. I exaggerate a lot about my ability to swim just because I want you to know if you 100 yards away on that dock and you get your ass whooped.
In open water.
Yeah, open water, right.
Right, in open water. And I got to wait for the ferry to part. Man, it's going to be like the Royal Rumble. You're going to have to wait for me. I'm going to be entrant number 30. It's going to be like Hulk Hogan came in the ring. You know how they put that person last? The last one to come is 30 people to come in the ring. First 3 cats is dudes from the high school gym. You know, they coach JV wrestling, right? And you got to wait. Yeah, man, you're going to have to wait for that boat to part. But again, to that point, it's inspirational, man. It's inspirational seeing cats motivated like that, right? And the anecdotal evidence that I've heard about folks swimming, going back to, and just to highlight another point that Brent made, the fact that engineers did not have to take swimming pissed me off, because when I transferred from engineering and then went to biology, I had to take a swim class. Now, that swim class, let me say that swim class was fantastic. It was taught by Dr. Newton Jackson.
Jackson.
We're going to have a whole nother episode on this. Dr. Jackson saved my life back when I was thinking that I was going to pledge. So we're going to leave it at that one. Thank you, Dr. Jackson, for saving my life, because I wasn't ready. But I ended up having to take his swim class, ended up getting better at swimming there, even as an adult. And I would say being able to tread water while we had to tread water, and you had to say the alma mater in the swim class. Learning to do that helped me get the confidence again to know that if I needed to, I can tread water long enough to get through the first, couple stanzas, that reared against the eastern sky. It's going to speed up a little bit towards the end, but I can fight and get myself up there, and then when I need to, I can relax and float in between. So my 100 yards is going to be 50, and then I'm going to have to relax and float on my back and not think about this fight. And then exactly, Brent. I had to chill for a little bit, flap my arm, my head above water, make waves when I can, and then 50 yards later, I'll be able to get over that stand. But I encourage everybody, man. Water safety is so huge. I'm glad we're doing this episode. It's so funny that as I call it, the Freedom Ferry got to show up in Alabama during that time too, man. It's a dope confluence of events.
It's ridiculous. Hey, listen, I want to thank you guys for sharing your water stories. I have told my water story in this segment with Dr. Angela Beale Tawfeeq, and I really encourage you, everybody, from parents, single adults, to have those conversations with yourselves first, get yourself right, so that you can teach your kids, other youth in your neighborhood and in your life and extended family, comfort around the water. And don't be afraid to suck in the beginning. Don't be afraid to face the fear and start in the shallow end with a little education, a little help. We're all in the same boat. Wow, literally and figuratively. And just learn more comfort and take back the waters. Check this out. I just want my friends to know that I have known this woman for far longer than it sounds. I shouldn't have to say 30 years. That's a long time, right? But I have Dr. Angela Beale Tawfeeq on the Black Futurist today. She is doing so many incredible things, but most importantly and most timely is we're talking about drowning prevention and diversity in aquatics. And I just want to welcome you to the show. And just please, thank you for joining us. Tell me what you're doing.
So much.
What is the official title? You got so many titles. I know you got PhD somewhere. You're teaching. You're a board member. Give the short version of all the 18 titles you got.
Okay, so the short version, I always go, I'm a mom and a wife now. We laugh,
Nice.
right? Our campus, our Howard days.
There you go.
But right now I am Dr. Angela Beale Tawfeeq, and I'm Associate Professor of Health and Physical Education, Teacher Education at Rowan University in Glassboro, New Jersey.
Nice.
I am also a public health advocate as well as a public health professional, and I'm a board member of Diversity in Aquatics, which is one of the only in the nation 100% volunteer-led organization that focuses in on helping bring water safety awareness and drowning prevention efforts to communities at the national, local levels, and to basically combat drowning as a neglected public health threat that it is, and it has been globally. Then I'm also a member of the American Red Cross Scientific Advisory Council, specifically the Aquatics Council, and a board member of Habitat Blue Green Fund, which focuses in on environmental health and science and water sustainability and other sustainable projects.
That's fantastic.
Oh, and a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Please don't leave that out, because they'll chase me out of here.
Yes.
I have some stats in front of me from the Diversity in Aquatics website.
Yes.
So I'm just going to read them off. It says 360,000 estimated annual unintentional drowning deaths worldwide.
Yes.
90% of unintentional drowning deaths happen in low and middle income countries.
Yes.
And drownings is one of the top 5 causes of death for people between 1 to 14 years of age. I see. Okay. Right.
Yes,
so we've got a problem.
Yes.
And you decided to take it on. And not only have you decided to take it on, you've also lassoed in a bunch of people I also know with you who went to Howard University on this board. You got a bunch of Howard swim team people are on the board of this national organization to end unintentional drownings.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes. And the great thing about it is that we are actually representative of the communities in which we are trying to really make that difference and that impact. So the stats that you shared, those are global stats. And when you think about it nationally, it is reflective, right? It's indigenous communities, it's immigrant communities, it's under-resourced, underserved. These numbers that you did share are really not necessarily up to date, because being the efforts to try to gather data across the world globally specifically also are not necessarily directly reflective of the populations that we're talking about. And it's important to understand too, when we're talking about drowning, being clear about it, because typically people think when you say drowning, you're just only talking about death. And it's important that we understand that what drowning means. And so according to the World Health Organization, drowning's defined as basically experiencing respiratory, impairment due to being submerged in water. And so when we're talking about that, people, especially in the US, that's our biggest thing, right? Drowning's the leading cause of death when we're looking at it in terms of children ages 1 to 4. Mm-hmm. And so when we're talking about kids 14 years old, drowning is the second leading cause, right? For kids up to 14.
Okay.
And then and it's second leading cause of unintentional injury deaths, just behind motor vehicle accidents. When you're looking at that globally, drowning, they're talking about those numbers are behind malaria, right?
Right.
So these are serious stats. But in the U.S., when we're also looking at it in terms of the definition of drowning, for every child who dies from drowning, you have to understand that about 7 other children end up in emergency rooms. We're talking about children and youth, but let's talk about the communities or the demographics, right, that are really disproportionately impacted by drowning.
Right.
And with 3 sons, males, right? Males drown 80%.
Pause for a second there and tell me why. Why is it gender specific?
Well, one of the things I would always say, I would say it's not necessarily gender specific. But when you do look at the literature, the data, that there's no definite. The data, though, is talking about the idea of maybe it's the difference between the idea of risk takers, right? Risk factors.
Okay.
You also have, when we're talking about these numbers, unfortunately, the idea of multi-victim drownings. And some of the stories, for example, if you're looking, you might have unfortunately seen stories where fathers are trying to help their children and they save their children, but unfortunately they have unfortunately met their death at that. But the idea of being clearly informed, really, it's focusing in on trying to see where the disparities happen. Because understand too, when we're talking about the demographics, drowning is a neglected public health issue. And it's not just drowning. If we're talking about disparities, let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about healthcare. Let's talk about the idea of poverty and unemployment and different things that totally impact us, communities of color, or communities that it just basically have been impacted by the different traumas of our of society, right? The reality of the direct connections can't be denied. And that's one of the things that we talk about. So when we're talking about African American children in particular, African American children drown in pools at the rate of 3 times higher, right? Drowning deaths, 79% of children who are in households with incomes less than $50,000 have little to no swimming ability, right? And then when you're talking about indigenous communities, drowning rates are impacting 29 years and younger, right? So there are totally social elements that you can't ignore. And then where people drown. In natural bodies of water, we're also talking about indigenous communities, whether it's American Indian or Alaskan Native, but I'm really trying to search to identify correctly with the tribal nations or the communities that we're talking about. They have the highest drowning rates, nearly 3 times higher in natural bodies of water than white people. And so when we're talking about the drowning rates of African Americans being 1.5 times higher in those open bodies of water, it's important to know that our children in pools, in particular, our children who are ages 10 to 14, that is where our children drown 5.5 times higher when we're talking about looking at white American children.
Well, let me ask some novice questions. You're the professional, the expert. I am surface level, but a great problem solver. So
right. You know, you would like beat me up if I ain't come straight.
Indulge me.
I can't even act like it. Don't even.
Indulge me on this. What are we talking about are like contributing causes? Is it access? What other than access? So access to at early age to swimming lessons, to pools themselves, or to natural bodies of water. Is it how are we measuring cultural activities and behaviors? And what are some of the tools you guys are employing as the stop? If this thing is an out of control locomotive, what does applying the brakes look like?
Well, one of the things that diversity in aquatics we totally understand is water is moving. Water is fluid. And the reality is that we, with diversity in aquatics, try to start with awareness. Awareness is what is attainable, because everything you just talked about, what are the factors? Well, factors like equitable access to facilities, to resources. Then when you're talking about It could be attitudinal barriers. And one of the great things about knowing is you do have histories where the idea of not swimming is something that has been passed from one generation to another. But we
Yep.
also understand that that is a part of the transatlantic slave trade, the idea of the traumas that are associated with that and so much more. We can't ignore that, because we as a people have a lineage, and that's something that your great scholars like Kevin Dawson, who talks about the idea of how we were pearl divers off of the west coast of Africa.
Mm.
I mean, knowing that kind of history, right? And so awareness about the great books that I've read, When the Land Were Ours, that which really capture how the idea of segregated beaches and the idea of segregation, and how, just like the civil rights movement, these were movements that were begun to try to maintain access over waterways, right?
Right.
Pools were built for public health reasons. Pools originally were built to keep people clean, black, white. If we look at, once again, the idea of the powers that be, socioeconomic differences,
Mhm.
to help keep everyone healthy. And so the idea of when that turned to leisure, when it turned to funds, right? When fear came that at first they were separated by gender, but then the idea of black and white people being in the same space, and a lot of the stories we've heard before then led to the denial of
Yeah.
really civil and human rights. So
Mhm.
those are all factors that we can't and shouldn't ignore, and we can learn more about that. So we start with awareness, because not everybody wants to swim. You will hear people talk about hair. Yes, I am a sister talking about hair, but the idea is that you can put a cap on it.
Right.
You don't stop getting in the shower, right? It is different. And one of the things is that there are many reasons, and I wish I could say that there was just one. But one of the things we want to do, and what I strive to do in all of the spaces where I am, is through collaboration, what you're doing right here, right now, raising the voice of the importance of raising awareness, of giving people access to resources.
Right.
Because what we can do is, by informing and making people aware of opportunities, and how to become advocates in terms of education. I'm not aloof to understand. Sometimes when I'm working in communities, I'm doing a great program right now here in Philadelphia. We have a wonderful exhibition called the Pool Exhibition. It's called Pool, A Social History of Segregation. You can
Mhm.
see it online, but it's one of a kind. And I'm running a youth enrichment program in collaboration with the Netter Center Community Partnerships in Schools program, because we want to bring our communities in. Hey, were you aware that we have a history that
Yeah.
is one that is not just negative, right? When you're talking about those stats with diversity in aquatics, we know the stats. We know people are going to see those first. But what can we do to make a difference also in the midst of that? So rather than operating from from loss and trial, from tribulation, we want to go from triumph to tribulation. We want to start here. So by really talking about it now, and understanding, if a parent knows that, number one, knowing how to swim doesn't make you drown proof. There is no such thing as drown proof.
Right.
Swimmers can drown, but knowing the importance of life jackets, right? The
Mhm.
value of understanding that if you are in, on, or around a body of water, I will gladly share with you free access points and materials from the American Red Cross, just being aware of the circle of drowning prevention. And what that is it's just a free circle of awareness that lets you parents know and lets communities know that there are things you should look for. So if you're a parent, supervision is important. I don't know how many times I've seen parents in aquatic environments, and they're on their phones, or they're laying out tanning, right? You got kids, you figure lifeguards are there. But sadly, the reality is, what other profession do we give children? 16-year-old
Right.
olds are children, to be solely responsible for multiple things, when in fact they are there to be lifeguards of a pool, but it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Parents are responsible. So being an active supervising parent when you're anywhere, or just even friends, because adults drown too. right?
Right.
That's a part of the question and discussion, because the numbers that we've shared, oftentimes, what we're talking about is children who don't swim because their families don't swim.
Right. So are there, under your arsenal of resources, are you directing education at the parents and say, hey, we have adult education and events? Are there offline events that happen that are accessible and affordable, especially as we start talking about socioeconomic status issues and access?
Yes, absolutely. And so through collaboration, for one of the things we're doing with diversity in aquatics right now is trying to help rebuild HBCU programs. The reason we're looking at HBCUs is because, for example, Howard University, everyone knows, is one of the only standing NCAA swim teams in the country.
Yeah.
From an HBCU. All of our other HBCUs, unfortunately, are trying to reestablish their swimming programs. But what we have to understand also is that these swimming programs used to also then directly connect to community-based programs. And remember, Howard University, if you were in the College of Arts and Sciences, you had to pass swimming in order to graduate.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was that effort, understand, save lives. Unfortunately, that too is something that's changing. But with diversity in aquatics, we are actually in collaboration with the American Red Cross, helping HBCUs repurpose, write grants to actually reinvent and bring back their swimming programs so that they're community-based programs. We're not necessarily worried about teams because we know the role that HBCUs can serve in communities. Right. And as we know right now, right, with everything politically, we ain't gonna talk about that going on. HBCUs were built for a reason.
Yeah.
And the education we can serve, in terms of offering free, like you said, learn to swim programs, or also looking at aquatics, we show how by learning to swim or being aware of water safety and diversity in aquatics, understand our aquatic councils are areas like scuba. There are Black scuba divers. There are not just African American. There are Hispanic and Latino brethren. There are tribal. So diversity is truly there, from gender to the idea of supporting that. There are veterans who are doing it. There are triathletes who are engaged. So it just, that shows the awareness and the learning to swim just opens up to many other opportunities, even occupational opportunities. So that is the connector, right? Because when I'm working and I'm trying to get, especially college kids, if I want a parent, if I'm teaching and I have older siblings and they need their child home to be watching their siblings, right? And I don't really have the time, I need them home. I have to really communicate with parents and communities. And the idea of, if I'm working council people and I'm trying to say, hey, Philadelphia, we need more pools. There's a national pool shortage. People can't swim if there are no pools. It's not just a pool shortage here in Philadelphia. It's in Chicago. It's in St. Louis. It's all over. So what do we need to do? That's what you asked me. When you're teaching a child, or the idea of learning is made on 3 levels. We learn affectively, right? Social, emotional, how we work together. We learn cognitively in terms of understanding, and then psychomotor, the movement. See, there's the teacher, right? I better know what I'm doing. But the idea is you can teach cognitive understanding, which then allows for learning to then transfer. So giving parents, yes, specifically, there are specific free resources, such as the American Red Cross has a free online course, and it's water safety for parents and child caregivers. Free.
Nice.
You can
great.
log on, take it as many times as you want. Free. I want you to open up your phone right now. Open up your phone.
Okay.
Go to your apps.
All right.
Go right into your apps. And right now, type American Red Cross First Aid CPR.
It's an app that I can download?
An app. Yes. Download it. Because if somebody's choking, guess what? You need it all, right? Because if drownings occur, it's not just one thing. We need to, as a people, understand the importance of injury risk prevention. That's what we want. We don't want accidents to happen. So by having the free app for adults of First Aid and CPR, download. Now,
I just did it.
Download fire safety. They have American Red Cross fire safety. And guess what? They have a wonderful child program where it's Pedro, right? Swimming is Whales Tales, high school, all free. Download it. It tells you how to go through and work through things in your own home for developing a fire safety plan, injury and risk prevention. Download the Learn to Swim app. It's free.
So what's the reason that we don't know about this? Why? I've never heard of these things.
Yes.
Where is it being communicated?
Well, it is actually being communicated all the time.
Really?
Believe it
then
or
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not in the in the cone of.
What it is, it's an effort, right? It's about resources and building. And that's one of the things with diversity in aquatics. Oftentimes there are so many people doing the work. And the challenge becomes, if you are doing this work, it's your income, right? Maybe you need to be charged for this information, right? People can put it behind a window.
Oh, I see.
The reality is that's the purpose of diversity in aquatics. One of the things, Ray, at Howard, what did we learn? And you had the nerve to be one of the first people as I transferred from FAMU, and I can say that, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I said it and I did it, and I'm glad I did.
Right.
And, and the idea, but I still do love him. Hey, I married a rattler, family rattler. Let me clean that up real fast because I got to get off this call after a minute, right? But the idea is, it's really what is valued, what's important. One of the things that you see is that people will go on cruises, people will go to the beach, people will get on paddle boats, people will go to pool parties. However, the idea of that responsibility. So if I go back to that circle of drowning prevention, it says if you have a private pool, make sure you have a gate around it that locks. It also is that if you get anytime, if you don't know how to swim or if you're in a boat, you shouldn't be in or on water without a U.S. Coast Guard certified life jacket. Now that's information for parents. Oftentimes we go, oh, I got those cute floaty things for my kid to put on, or I don't need. But the reality is, understand, U.S. Coast Guard approved life jackets are weighted to be able to do. That's why the important size of fit, the importance of knowing how to put it on. Understand they are sold at Walmart. There are actually some free lifeguard loaner jacket programs that are in different states. So it's really raising the awareness. Right. And then it's unfortunate because learning to swim also can be viewed by some as a luxury. And the American Red Cross, right, is very much community-based, has something called their centennial programs. And the effort initially started over back in 2014, where the effort was to try to identify the states that had the highest drowning rates and then go in, because we collaborate together. And one of the things with diversity in aquatics, we say we want to actually acknowledge the importance and the assets of communities, right? It's always this deficit language. We know, right? I even hate it when I'm talking about it, because it's like underserved, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is me. What the heck? Like, why do I have to say that? But the reality is, I understand. I don't speak for all Black people. People look at me and be like, girl, please, whatever.
Let me jump there for 1 second. Where are you from? Where did you graduate high school? What city?
I know. I go in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia.
Right.
Born and raised in the swimming pool is where I spent most of my days.
Right. So you guys got swim teams. You got community centers with pools. And
you making it sound romantic. That is not even true. So
I'm not. I get it. I've seen it. Let me just ask you personally though. How did you get here? Like, where did your passion journey begin? You left high school. You already knew how to swim, right? Because you made it to college and you went on a swim team.
Right.
Well, so how did that start? Like, where was your beginnings?
Right. So I didn't know how to swim. I never took a formal swimming lesson myself. I often say, when I really do reflect, being Black in America, you're a natural statistic, right? And children whose parents are divorced and you're a single parent home and, you live in a certain area, then you can become a statistic, period. So fine. But the idea of cities taking responsibility to make sure resources, access, such as things as parks and rec, are up and running, it's not just pool programs that parks and recs and cities can give. It's not just schools, right? The idea of a comprehensive school health model where schools used to be the center, right? And recreational centers were where kids could go after schools. And because of that connection, I had the Boys and Girls Club of Nicetown. And then there was a Parks and Recs, Jim Ellis, there are many others, Paula Jones, David Owens, Woody Harrelson. These are members that I can name that were people who were Parks and Rec employees and teachers and professionals in the community that believed in giving back to the community, no matter what, through education. And being in Philadelphia, Cheney State University, is that one of the oldest HBCUs, right? Coming from Pittsburgh, they were educators. And so in the cities, that kind of access was available. So being able to go to a city pool and swim or have access. Unfortunately, right now, that's the challenge. Because I had a city access to a pool and access to the programming because each of those people I named was African American, except for Dave Owens, yes, but he believed. And it was Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. And so that meant that was kind of a unit that was in North Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, South Philadelphia. You can think about it where kids actually had access. And at the pool where I was at Marcus Foster, Jim Ellis did also believe that he grew up knowing that swimming and the adversities, that swimming could actually change kids' lives if they could get a little more. You didn't know how to swim, but it could not only help kids save lives, but when we save lives, and I say swimming saved my life, because I had a place to go, I wasn't on the street doing things that I wasn't supposed to do, or someone would, or that would give me a different kind of access.
Yeah. Let me ask you, was it cool to learn to swim at the time? And I asked that question very specifically because I was in New Orleans and I was talking to one of the guys from Rebirth Brass Band. And we were talking about how that city in particular, it was very cool to be a musician at every age level. These guys grow up, like it's the incentivized thing to do. You want attention, like we all do, you do the cool thing. And for them, it had to do with music. So what was it that opened up the idea in your mind to say, this is something, because you could have done anything. You could have said, I want to be on the track team. I want to be on the, what was it about swimming that brought you in?
Well, actually, what brought me in was the one time my mom let me stand in one of those long lines that's around the block in the corner, if you really know what a city pool is like, the one time. And they made a call and they said, hey, kids, if you'd like to try to join a swim team, it doesn't matter if you know how to swim. We'll teach you. And so my sister and I, believe it or not, my sister swam badly. And so did I, but she told me, I always tell this story. She said, they also offer, believe it or not, a diving team, because they had people who wanted to actually share and expose this to the community. And believe it or not, the community in Nicetown where we grew up, where Marcus Foster is and Simon Gratz, right? People might know it. Simon Gratz for Rasheed Wallace, right? We do basketball. We do everything that's right. But giving back in this community is something that people did in our community. Even if you didn't swim, being at the pool was a cool place to be.
There we go.
And that's what being at the pool, and then there were services, right? That's where friendships might have existed. That's where life, you could be invited. You were exposed to, like you said, American Red Cross. How would I know about it? I didn't know anything about it, but because there were people who did know. And so this is what we're doing right now. We want people to not say they don't know.
Right.
But it was cool to be at the pool and then to try to swim and join the swim team. Every person, it didn't matter what your stature was, they were touched by Philadelphia Parks and Rec, which turned into the swim team. And then it did require you to decide that you wanted to be a part. And then expectations were held of us as kids in the neighborhood, and then academically. And that wasn't from our teachers and parents. That's an automatic, but it also was the expectation of the people, the employees who work, from the coaches who were neighborhood teachers and communities that let parents know if their kids were at the pool, they were actually safe. They were
Yes.
actually safe. And in the neighborhood, believe it or not, you know how things move in a neighborhood. When the neighborhood knew that there were certain people who really took it to another level, the neighborhood then became the guardian of
That's right.
making sure that that group, even if everything was happening to
That group was
everyone,
protected, watched out
that
for.
group,
That's right.
yes. And so
Mhm.
when my sister and I walked through our community, because the reality was also people started to come from the outside in because of the quality of the opportunity.
That's awesome.
And they from when my sister and I walked down the street, they were like, they're the mermaids, let them go, keep them going. Hey y'all, keep up the good work, keep doing it. And that's how I'm here, because
And you're passing it on.
I'm passing it. It's my responsibility.
That's
It's
fantastic.
my responsibility.
I want to share a quick bit of my own story, and then I want to ask you for where people should go to find out more information, because I want to also make sure that we direct them to the pool exhibit as well. But you were talking earlier about learning to swim, and the thing that you don't know about my own story is my mother and father had put me in swim lessons at least 3 times when I was growing up, and it never took. I was the kid at summer camp. I would get to go to summer camp, which was great. So either the camps had pools or they had a lake, but you had to swim test to go do it.
I hated that lake.
Yeah, exactly. I was never able to do it. And so I was the guy at the pool who was like around the edge all the time. My cousins would be out, wherever they are. And I'm like working my way around the edge of the pool the whole way. Academically, I knew how to swim. As like a mental academic understanding, I knew the elements of doing it, but I was unable to execute. And I'm sure if we go back, it was because of fear, right?
Yes.
So then the summer before I come to Howard, the summer before I make it to college, we were on family vacation and the hotel had a pool. And finally, I just wasn't afraid. I was like, you know what? I'm going to swim. And right there, it was just like I decided, and I became a swimmer. And that whole vacation, I was just out there doing laps way beyond the ability to touch the bottom, because I knew how to do it, but I just didn't do it. And now I was beyond the fear and just went and did it. And then later on, like you said, I became a PADI certified scuba diver, and I've gone on many a dive, all these things that and the reason I'm sharing this and the reason I asked you your story is because I'm trying to use that information and understand our own stories to see how can we take our information and our experience and decode the next generation's experience, and either provide the environment that will allow them to have those same breakthroughs, or just create it from the very beginning. So there's never even a phase where they're held up by something. Really inspired by what you're doing.
No, and I am so inspired by your story, because what you said is they're basically, everyone does have a narrative. So the idea of capturing the narratives to be able to overcome the fear. So our whole discussion, as I said before, it was not to negate fear, right?
Right.
One of the things that we know is that there is trauma that's associated with that natural born fear, whether or not, like you said, parents can try. Believe it or not, my own family, my kids hate swimming. I go, look, I just need you to be. And so one of the things that I'd like to also take from what you said is be forgiving of yourself. But there was a persistence. Never give up. You are never too old to learn how to swim.
Agreed.
So the idea of fear in the context of understanding that water is all around us and being responsible, it was understanding that, but we do have to allow people that time. But just because your child, like you might not know how to swim, we can break that chain of not knowing with our children, and like how often we say, let the children lead the way. By making sure we know the resources and getting our children into the water. Now, here's the great part. The American Red Cross, like we're saying, access to programs. You can type right in AmericanRedCross.org. free swimming, or swimming lessons. And they're depending on different areas. You can get free or reduced or scholarship programs, because this is something that everyone really wants to do. We just, believe it or not, on June 29th, passed the first National Water Safety Action Plan. This is the first of our country. And the purpose is to understand there is policy and legislation that we need to have change to really make water safety and drowning prevention a top public health issue. But we also know we need infrastructural change to make that happen, to get our most vulnerable.
Right.
That's that policy change we need. So where could everyone get access to information? K-12 schools, absolutely. Right? If we taught swimming lessons, what a great opportunity for health and physical education teachers. Intertwine. I'm doing water safety right now on land, as we said at the pool, interdisciplinary with environmental science, talking about water sustainability, the importance. I'm always thinking about how, like you said, how can you maybe teach something that might lead to something else? Because learning to swim is the beginning. But like, to the point of stories is that you were ready. The funny thing, you and I share a similar story. I just didn't have the luxury part of the camp. And
I don't even know what made you think it was luxurious, but okay.
But the idea of my sister, I never forget, we were around here. It was the Boys and Girls Club. I couldn't swim, but I got tired of the big kids leaving me, and I was in the 2 feet of water. I just turned into a big kid, and I'm still standing in 2 feet of water. And then one day, finally, it was that, right? You stayed where you saw people doing whatever they were doing. And it was being willing to overcome that fear and understanding that narrative and not getting stuck in the fear.
Right.
Is very important.
Good.
Across the board. Thank you so much. This is Dr. Angela Beale Tawfeeq, and you can hear more about diversity in aquatics at diversityiнаquatics.org, and go see a national exhibit called Pool: A Social History of Segregation at poolphl.org.